Hello everyone, this is the second part of the interview I've had with Tobias, who is a former Bundeswehr Leopard 2 loader, who served on Leopard 2A6, 2A6M Plus and 2A7. If you haven't watched the first part, I'd highly recommend it. There he talks about many interesting things, which include training, the jobs he had to do, small arms they were issued, and so on. This part is more focused on the technical aspects of Leopard 2 tanks, well, the ones he served on, including the Leopard 2A7. So if you're more into that stuff, this video is for you. Also, Tobias told me you guys can ask some questions in the comment section that you didn't hear in the interview, and he will be more than happy to answer them. Again, I will leave his YouTube channel and Discord contacts in the description if you want to contact him directly. Well, without further ado, enjoy the video. Okay, how long does it approximately take to load the main gun of Leopard 2?
It totally depends on many factors. For example, is the tank moving? Is it not moving? In which terrain is it moving? I mean, in the best situation you can imagine is the tank is standing in a static position, in a defending position, and you basically have as a loader already the next round in your hands before the first one is already shot. Mm-hmm. In cases like this, you can fire a second round in 3 to 4 seconds. Because the gun goes off and you immediately put in the next round and press the firing button. But while driving, it's normally aimed to get a reload time from 7 to 10 seconds. Of course, it depends on how tired you are. If you are 2 weeks out and you're, of course, a bit slower, then it's your first day. And it's depending on the terrain. Is it hard terrain, soft terrain, or even roads? It's much more easy to reload. Because you have to stand. I mean, if you have both your hands on the round, and sometimes they weigh like 25 kilograms, it's hard to adjust your standing on a moving vehicle. Mm-hmm. I mean, for some people, it's even hard to read while driving in a car.
Yeah.
And now imagine driving through hard terrain and have to put a 25 kilogram object in a small tube next to you.
Yeah, I imagine it's tough.
Yeah.
What were your instructions on the hull ammo rack? Were you instructed to keep it loaded or unloaded, or could your crew choose how many shells to store in the hull?
No, we didn't really had to choose it because we got ordered. For example, the tank has to take 30 rounds. And like you know, we only had 15 rounds in the turret rack.
Yeah.
And so we had to put the rest in the hull. We all know it's sadly not a blast protected, but we had to live with it. But it was which round you put in, that's what normally the crew decided. You always have to have some kinetic energy rounds in the turret. Always. There's no case where you only have, for example, the heat FS or now HE in your turret, because it's always a goal to have at least one kinetic energy in hand in case you see a main battle tank and you have to load it. That's one thing. For example, many people don't know the turret rack are basically 15 rounds. It's a 3 rows above and 5 to the side, and it's like tubes you can move. And as a loader, you can only pull out the middle ones. After you pull the middle ones out, you move the tube in the next position to get it. Mm-hmm. So you have to look where you put in your rounds to get always a kinetic energy round out. Because if you do it a bit wrong, you can only get out heat FS, even you have kinetic energy in your turret rack.
Okay. Okay then. What was the communication like inside of the tank between the crew, and what was the communication like between the actual tanks?
Yeah, the communication totally changed with A6M Plus because we got a new intercom system. Before it was a rather old intercom system nearly all German vehicles used, and it was more simple and more easy to use. And we even had some adapters to put MP3 players in the intercom system. For example, the driver had two connections for it. One where he is talking and receiving, and on the other one, sometimes he used MP3 players to, so the whole crew was able to listen to music while intercom.
That's nice.
It was a nice thing. For example, if you are in a shooting training and your tank isn't at the moment at the shooting, and you have some waiting time for several hours, for example, so you can to listen some music. Later with A6M Plus, we got SOTAS IP. It's called. Intercom system. It offers, for example, also a field telephone on the rear of the tank to talk with grenadiers and stuff like this next to you. This was a nice thing, like it's basically a small computer you have next to you where you can mute, unmute, or choose what channels you want to listen and relay, for example, that the field telephone is able to use the radio. And the communication between the tanks was with the normal radios we used. The SAM, it's called 80 and 90. They are pretty old radios. They work, but they are limited. With A7 we got bigger antennas. It was working better with it. But I think there will be some changes with the radios because they are very, very old. Also, Leopard 2X A6 Plus, M Plus, got us a new headsets and new helmets for the new SOTAS IP system. It was a bit different because before this we had this old, many people know it, these like leather helmets. Some people used a headset with them, but with this you had only two options, like locking a lever to the front so you can talk with the intercom system, or holding it back to use the radio. The new SOTAS IP offered a way to talk with voice activation, so you don't have to push the lever and go with your hand on your helmet. So you can do something while you're talking. That was a totally new thing, and it was really great. For many people, it needs to get a feeling to it because you also got the possibility to lock the lever for radio transmission, so you can do a longer talk without holding it all the time. And many people didn't know that, lock the lever because they thought it's intercom and did some talking, and the whole platoon was able to listen to it, even if they shouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. What can you tell us about the fire control system, particularly about the thermal imagers? How does WBGX compare to Attica, and what can you tell us about the battle management system?
Yeah, fire control system of Leopard 2 is a great system, I have to say, because its possibility to have 360 degrees optical sight for the commander.
Yeah.
And also the gunner has thermal imaging. So you can split your areas you have to watch. For example, the gunner watches from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock and the commander from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So you can more concentrate on a smaller area. And the commander is able to control the whole gun. So if he sees something that's more important and where he needs to react faster than telling the gunner, yeah, there's a target to the left side, he can just take over the gun with a small thing like a joystick and do the fighting with himself. Also, it's used when we trained in platoon level. Normally 2 tanks always work together, like a half platoon it's called. And the commander of your tank watches the gunner of the other tank. Because in dry terrain, when you shoot, dust will come off in front of you because of the, how it's called, pressure coming out of the gun.
Yeah.
So he can overwatch the shooting of the other tank, and if the other tank misses, he immediately can fire with his gun on the same target. So if you got the main battle tank, you fire on it, you miss, but this main battle tank can get a second round in around 2 seconds.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. With the thermal imaging, I mean, I only trained as a gunner on A6 and A6M Plus.
Okay.
So I only worked myself with WBGX. It was heavily depending on your vehicle, on its condition. I've seen vehicles where it was in a better condition and vehicles where it was in a worse condition. Attica is the best thing I have seen, to be honest. When I saw it first, we saw it first with A6M Plus for the Commander, and it was a total different thing. When we were able to see like rabbits running around in a field, kilometers away when we got these tanks first, and we tested it out first in our barracks. We were standing next to a fence, and our barracks were like on a hill. We were watching down with the thermal imaging, and you were able to see everything. It was just awesome compared.
That's great.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that A7 now has this great system for the gunner.
Yeah.
It will give a great advantage to other tanks.
Yeah,
around.
That's pretty good. Something about the battle management systems?
Yeah, the battle management system. A6 and Plus and stuff like this didn't have any battle management system. So your battle management system is called map and pencil.
Mm-hmm.
A7 has a battle management system. Normally it's FISH or Fü Infosys. It's called what's the full name? Yeah, it's the total name is Führungsinformationssystem Heer. It's called. It's a rather old system, and Germany plans to get a new BMS. For these are at the moment trials to get another BMS just for a short time of VGTF, but after this there will be a totally new BMS system.
Okay.
So only in my time where I served, only 20 tanks had BMS.
Okay. Have you ever had any problems with the Leopard 2's engine, and if so, were those problems easy to fix?
Myself, we had never any big problems with the engine of Leopard, and also all the other people were always saying if Leopard 2 has some problems, it's always the turret. It's like it's never the hull. The hull is perfect, I have to say. And even you have some problems, even you have to change the engine, it's a thing like 10 minutes to get the engine out and the new one in. And I've seen how old sometimes these engines were, way over 20 years. And they were running without problems. So MTU did something great with them.
German quality.
Yeah, and small things you of course have to do, like cleaning the filters. You have the air filters on the engine, and even this, you turn the turret and you have like a small winch to open the engine bay, and you can get out the air filters, and then you use some compressed air to make them clean again, put them in, lower the cover of the engine bay, and you're fine. So these engines are great.
Yeah, they thought of everything. Is there some interesting stuff you can tell us regarding the maintenance of the tank?
Interesting things, yeah. It's hard work. It's hard work sometimes. I mean, the more easy things is what the driver alone does, like checking the oil. But the more complex things is like changing the drive sprockets. It's basically normally we did it with an armored recovery vehicle. So we opened the train and drove forward to get the track off. And then you basically change these drive sprockets. In the first time you are able to turn them around, because normally the tank is driving forward.
Okay.
So these gears are used on only one side. So you can turn them once around, so the left one comes on the right side and the right side comes on the left one, and you can keep going with it. But then when this is done already, you have to get new ones. Then also interesting is to change, for example, the road wheels. There's a small tool you use to drive on it, so the road wheels will be lifted inside the track. So you can basically change them like on a normal car changing wheels.
That's good.
Yeah, that's small things. And like I said before, changing the air filters or cleaning them, that's, for example, one of the maintenance things.
Yeah, okay. Well, since you served on multiple variants of Leopard 2, how would you compare them, and which one was the best in your opinion?
I think depending on the situation, I've seen first the A6. It's like the basic variant with on basically A5 with a longer gun.
Yeah.
A6M Plus got the mine protection. It's of course better if you have the threat of mines and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
But as you see, the development of Leopard, it gets heavier. And that's what many drivers also say, that they can get the feeling that the tank gets heavier and lost its agility it had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best thing I served on was A7 on the end, because the auxiliary power unit is one thing that I would never want to miss. To get the ability to get electric power, like standing in your position without having the big engine running.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and also the most important thing is today where we live is BMS. So working without BMS is like suicide in a modern combat.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, Leopard 2A7 gave us a totally new ammunition, the high explosive round, that was some sort of intelligent, because it's capable of 3 different modes of explosion: impact, delayed fuse, and airburst. Airburst is in hand for targets behind cover, or even stuff like this, low flying helicopters and stuff like this, because it has like small tungsten balls that can do a bit spread to destroy targets.
Yeah.
And delayed fuse is against like houses and stuff like this to actually destroy targets inside of buildings. And impact is the normal impact explosion of high explosion.
Mm-hmm.
The gunner was able to control this with an additional device on his control steering, how it's called. It's like basically, I always compared it to an Xbox controller. He was aiming gun with. And on top of it, it was a new device with a lever on it to make a choice about the explosion mode of the high explosion.
Okay.
He also was able to see a different letter for it in his reticle. For example, normally you had A, B, C, and I think it was D for machine gun. And now you can see which mode you have.
Okay.
For example, I think L it was, but there are also, I think, pictures you can find on the internet.
Okay then. What were your instructions on how to deal with enemy tanks, most notably modern Russian tanks?
Yeah, we got some briefing during our trainings about vehicles. We even had a small book in our company about several tanks that could be possible our enemy. We never say the Russians are our enemies.
Okay.
There's nothing like this, but Russian tanks are common on all of the world. That's why we mostly use them in simulators as targets. But we even trained in simulator once against Leopards.
Okay.
For example, that's always also what happens.
That can happen also because Leopard 2 is also kind of common.
Yeah. And what we learned is, for example, the Russian system with laser warning receivers.
Yeah.
That this is a highly dangerous situation. So if mostly we trained to fight defensive, not aggression. And so when you're standing in your position, and for example you have in front of you like 3 kilometers away a forest where they may come out, you already take the distance on it before the combat. Okay. So you don't have to later them and give them your position.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Also, they told us that things like T80 and T90 especially are tanks that are not that we have to take serious. That's not just Russian rubbish like many people think, that T80 and T90 are pretty good tanks, and that they can be very dangerous to Leopard.
Yeah, that's a good view to have. Don't underestimate your enemy.
Yeah.
Okay then. Have you ever been told on how good the armor of your tank is, or if the projectiles would be able to penetrate the tanks you would face?
We never really talked much about the armor. I mean, we know Leopard has a pretty good frontal armor, but for example, the side hull armor, we all knew it's not that big. But if you see the Leopard 2 comes from a time where a totally different doctrine was in. If you compare to Leopard 1 that has basically for today's standard no armor.
Yeah.
So we are happy to had already at least the frontal armor that was able to stop some sort of kinetic energy projectiles, but we are very sure about it that it's safe against shaped charge and stuff like this from the side.
That especially goes for Leopard 2A7 now.
Yeah. I mean, we all saw the videos of the Turkish Leopards.
Yeah.
And we all thought about it, and yeah. It's the other thing about this not protected hull armor, sadly.
Yeah.
That's rightly in front of the turret, of the tank.
Yeah. What do you think will be the future of Leopard 2 tanks?
Well, the future, I think it won't go around the bigger gun. Because at one point you will have to get a bigger gun to get more penetration.
Yeah.
You see this already on the trials with the, I think, Challenger tank it was, with the 130mm gun.
Yeah.
And even the development of a 140mm gun. So in case the Russians will get a new gun, we don't know when it will come, but when it will come, I think the Western countries like NATO will have to follow it. And with a new gun, I mean, there were, I think, already trials with a Leopard with a 103mm gun and an autoloader.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the future will be, I think, some sort like a turret layout like on the Japanese T-90.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that it goes this way. I mean, the Leopard don't really has one future, I think, because all you see, the different nations have all different variants.
Yeah.
Like every nation has its own variant with totally different things. I mean, the best thing you can say is there are two main families of Leopard 2 tanks, from KMW and from Rheinmetall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are both Leopards, but they are totally different in many things.
Yeah.
Even the shape of the turret.
Yeah.
So there is no clear future, but I think for the major powers in the West, there will be an upgrade of the weapon before the new tank comes.
Yeah, most probably. Okay then, what is the greatest threat to a tank in your opinion?
The biggest threat to a tank, in my opinion, is at the moment the wrong use of a tank.
Mm-hmm.
If you see, many people are still telling that the time of tanks is over.
Yeah.
And they say this comes from situations like it was in Grozny, where the Russians lost their T-80 tanks in urban areas. Or, for example, today in the fight Armenia versus Azerbaijan, with the UAVs destroying and damaging tanks. But the thing is, these things can be prevented. And if you see the tank losses, for example, in Syria, got far less now.
Yeah,
like
that's
they
true.
were in the beginning of the war. Because you have to use the tank combined with others, and not only mechanized infantry. In today's time, it's again anti-air protection, like it was in Cold War. And many nations forgot about this. The main threat is today UAVs, I think.
Yeah.
When fighting a real enemy, not some irregulars with rocket-propelled grenades and buildings. So you need, I think, at least at company or even at battalion level, some sort of air defense to defensive vehicles. I mean, these UAVs are flying low or high on very slow speeds.
Yeah.
I mean, they are easy to shoot down, and I think there are already so many systems to shoot down drones, even with jamming or lasers. Mm-hmm. So it hasn't to be some sort of missile. But even I think there should be some tests with stingers or stuff like this. That's to get the casualties of tanks low. But the need of a tank will always be there, because you need a bigger gun to protect infantry.
Yeah.
And the tank has more jobs to do than just do this. For example, you can use the tank with its optics also to scout or overwatch areas.
Yeah, that's true.
But never use a tank alone, and that's the problem many nations had, and that's why many nations lost so many tanks. When I see in Yemen or the Turkish with their Leopards in northern Syria, or now the T-72 is from Armenia.
Yeah.
Just standing in the open field and watching for the UAV to come.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, tank can hardly be replaced because the guys on the ground can always use its support. A plane can just do a run through and it has to go and rearm and refuel, but the tank is always there with the guys on the ground. Okay then, last question. What can you tell to all the people who want to become tankers, since there's a lot of countries that operate some variant of Leopard 2 tank?
Yeah, I just can tell, go for it. I had it for myself. I was young. I was thinking, I want to join the military, but I made my goal to serve on a Leopard 2. And I even told this in the recruitment office, that I only want to serve on a Leopard or I won't join the army. Because I like tanks, of course, and I wanted to be on this Leopard. And it's the thing, I mean, if you need to be familiar with the concept of serving in the military, because it is a bit different than civilian life. But being on a tank is some sort of different to other branches in the military, and it has its downsides and its upsides. But I have to say the upsides will always be better than the downsides. For example, I had a situation where we had a training. It was raining, it was muddy. We are standing in a position. I was watching out of the loader hatch, and next to me was a grenadier, and he was knee-deep in mud. Totally wet. He had his rifle with him, all his ammunition, and I think even a backpack on him. And I was sitting in this Leopard. The heating was running. I had some Haribos to eat. You know, these small beers from Haribo. And drinking my soda while watching him. how he was knee-deep in mud. That's a thing. And also, for example, getting the feeling when the Leopard goes full speed in terrain and you have this engine sound, you have the mud in your face when you watch out, and the vibrations and stuff like this, or the feeling when a tank first time shoots when you're inside it. It's you can't compare to other things. I mean, yeah, there's stuff that's not that fine, like for example the maintenance. It can be hard. For example, if you have to change the rubber pads on the track, it can take long. It's sometimes hard. But to get these other feelings, and I think all tankers will think the same about it. When a tank is driving, everything is fine. It's the best feeling you can get. I mean, other people paying a lot of money to drive with a tank.
Oh yeah, there are services now that offer that.
Yeah, and then you get paid for it.
Yeah,
that's what you have to think about it. So, I mean, if you can, for example, people who get drafted, if you have the chance to get into the tanks, it's something you should consider. And if you're volunteering to join, tanks is the best thing I think you can get, beside maybe flying a fighter plane.
Yeah. Okay then, thank you Tobias for the interview. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.